He looked at her face and saw a monster. He looked at her rank and saw a slave. Alpha Killian thought rejecting the scarred Omega was the only way to save his reputation. He thought she was weak. He thought she was broken. But he didn't know that the jagged scar running down her cheek wasn't a mark of shame. It was the seal keeping a god-tier power contained. What happens when an arrogant alpha breaks the heart of the only woman capable of wielding the legendary moonfire? He rejects her as a mate, but the moment she unleashes her true power, his wolf doesn't just howl, it kneels. This is the story of Emma Vance, and the rejection that burned the world down. The mirrors in the Silver Creek pack house were all covered in the servants' quarters. It wasn't a pack rule, it was a personal mercy Emma Vance granted herself. She knew what she looked like. She didn't need glass to remind her of the jagged raised flesh that started at her left temple, slashed through her eyebrow, and terminated just above her jawline. It was a map of pain, a souvenir from a rogue attack 6 years ago that had killed her parents and left her a 12-year-old pup bleeding out in the snow. She had survived, but the pack hadn't let her forget the cost. To them, scars on a female were bad omens. Scars on an Omega were a curse. Emma, stop daydreaming and get the banquet hall ready. The sharp voice of Lydia the head Omega snapped Emma out of her thoughts. Emma gripped the mop handle tighter, her knuckles turning white. "I'm moving, Lydia, I'm moving. Tonight is Alpha Killian's return." Lydia sneered, walking past and deliberately kicking the bucket of dirty water, sloshing it onto Emma's worn sneakers. If a single speck of dust is found on those chandeliers, you'll be sleeping in the kennels again. Emma didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She simply dipped the mop back into the bucket. At 18, she had learned that silence was the only shield she had. The Silver Creek pack was buzzing with a frantic, nervous energy. Killian Thorne, the Alpha's son, and the future leader of the pack, was returning from the Royal Alpha Academy in Europe. He had been gone for 4 years. Rumor had it he had grown ruthless, efficient, and incredibly strong. Every eligible she-wolf in the pack had spent the last month starving themselves and buying expensive dresses, hoping to catch his eye at the homecoming ball tonight. Emma knew she was invisible to men like Killian. She was the scarred Omega, the girl who cleaned up after the parties, not the one who attended them. "I heard he's looking for a mate," a young female wolf named Sarah whispered to another maid as they polished silverware nearby. "Alpha Magnus wants him to secure the bloodline before the winter solstice." "It won't be us," the other maid giggled. "It'll probably be Seraphina. She's been spending hours at the spa." Emma tuned them out. She felt a strange heat prickling beneath her skin, right under the scar. It happened sometimes, a feverish itch that felt like sparks of electricity trying to jump from her veins. She rubbed her cheek against her shoulder, wincing. Not today, she pleaded silently. Not tonight. By sunset, the banquet hall was transformed. Golden lights draped from the high wooden beams, and the scent of roasted venison and expensive wine filled the air. Emma was tasked with staying in the shadows, refilling glasses, and clearing plates meant to be seen, but not perceived. As the heavy oak doors creaked open, the chatter in the room died instantly. Alpha Magnus stood there looking proud, but all eyes were on the man beside him. Killian Thorne. Emma felt the air leave her lungs. He was taller than she remembered, his shoulders broad enough to block out the light from the hallway. He wore a tailored black suit that strained against his muscles, his dark hair swept back. But it was his eyes that froze, her stormy grey, sharp as flint, scanning the room with a predator's boredom. As he walked down the grand staircase, the sheer power radiating off him made the wolves nearest to him bow their heads in submission. It was a heavy, suffocating aura. Emma, standing in the far corner, holding a tray of champagne flutes, tried to look down at her shoes. But her body betrayed her. Her wolf, usually dormant and quiet, suddenly woke up, scratching at the walls of her mind. "Mate," her wolf whispered. Emma's heart stopped. "No. Mate." The inner voice screamed louder, vibrating through her bones. She gripped the tray so hard the glass stems threatened to snap. This couldn't be happening. The universe could not be cruel enough to pair the lowest, most damaged wolf in the pack with the future alpha. It was a death sentence. Killian reached the bottom of the stairs. He was being swarmed by Serafina and her entourage, but he suddenly froze. His head snapped up. He sniffed the air, his nostrils flaring. The scent hit Emma a second later. Rainwater ozone and dark pine. It was the most intoxicating thing she had ever smelled. Killian pushed past Serafina, ignoring her hand on his arm. He moved through the crowd like a shark parting a school of fish. His gaze was locked on the corner of the room, on Emma. "Don't look at me," Emma whispered, terrified. "Please don't look at me." But he did. He stopped 3 feet away from her. The silence in the room was deafening. Everyone was watching. Killian looked at her, his eyes wide with shock. He inhaled deeply, his jaw clenching. Then his gaze traveled up. It moved from her tattered servant's uniform to her neck, and finally to her face. He saw the scar. The shock in his eyes vanished, replaced instantly by something cold, something cruel. Disgust. Emma felt the rejection before he even spoke. It hit her harder than the rogue's claw that had marked her face. "You," Killian said, his voice a low rumble that carried to every corner of the silent hall. "You are the source of the scent." Emma couldn't speak. She just nodded a single jerky movement. Killian laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. Fate has a sick sense of humor. The humiliation was a physical weight pressing Emma into the floorboards. She wanted to vanish, to dissolve into smoke, but Killian's aura pinned her in place. "Killian," Alpha Magnus stepped forward, looking between his son and the servant girl. "What is the meaning of this? The meaning, father?" Killian said without taking his eyes off Emma's scar, "Is that the moon goddess has made a mistake." Gasps rippled through the crowd. To question the moon goddess was blasphemy. Killian took a step closer to Emma. Up close, he was terrifyingly beautiful, but his expression was hard as stone. He lowered his voice, so only she and the nearest wolves could hear. "Look at you. You're an Omega, a servant, and that face." He gestured vaguely to her cheek. "I need a queen. A Luna who commands respect. A Luna who is flawless." Emma found her voice. It was shaky, but it was there. "I did not ask for this alpha thorn." "And neither did I," he snapped. He turned his back on her, facing the crowd. He raised his voice, ensuring every wolf in the pack, every visiting dignitary witnessed the moment. "I, Killian Thorne, future alpha of the Silver Creek Pack, reject you, Emma Vance, as my mate." The words struck Emma like a physical blow to the chest. The bond which had just begun to form a golden thread connecting their souls snapped violently. Pain, white-hot and searing, tore through her. She dropped the tray. The sound of shattering crystal echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest, gasping for air. It felt like her heart was being ripped in two. Usually, when an alpha rejects a mate, the pain is mutual. Killian should have been on his knees too, but Killian stood tall. He flinched his hand, going to his heart for a brief second, but he forced himself to stand straight. He was fighting the pain, suppressing it with sheer alpha dominance. He refused to show weakness in front of his pack. Get her out of here, Killian ordered, his voice tight. She's ruining the celebration. 2 guards rushed forward, grabbing Emma by her arms. Wait. The voice belonged to Seraphina. The high-ranking female stepped forward, a cruel smile playing on her lips. She looked at Killian, then down at Emma. She's a reject now, Killian. Unmated, broken. Does she even belong in the pack house? A rogue, scarred Omega brings nothing but bad luck. Killian looked at Emma, who was struggling to breathe on the floor, surrounded by broken glass and champagne. For a second, a flicker of regret passed through his grey eyes. His wolf was thrashing inside him, screaming at him to help her, to comfort her, to claim her. Mine she is ours, his wolf roared in his mind. Silence, Killian commanded his beast. She is a liability. Seraphina is right, Killian said coldly. Remove her from the pack house. She can sleep in the outer barracks with the seasonal workers until I decide what to do with her. Killian, Emma whispered, looking up at him. Tears finally spilled over, tracking through the grooves of her scar. Why? Because power does not mate with weakness, he said. The guards dragged her out. Emma didn't fight them. She was too numb. The pain of the rejection was slowly being replaced by something else. As they threw her out the back door into the mud and the pouring rain, the heat beneath her scar returned. But this time, it wasn't an itch. It was a burn. Lying in the mud, listening to the music restart inside the warm mansion, Emma felt a strange vibration in the ground. The clouds above Silver Creek shifted. The moon, full and bright, seemed to pulse. Inside Emma, the pain of the broken bond collided with the dormant power she had hidden for 6 years. The rejection hadn't broken her. It had cracked the seal. Her eyes, usually a soft hazel, flashed a luminous, blinding violet. You think I am weak, Killian? She whispered to the rain, her voice sounding strange, layered with a harmonic resonance that wasn't human. She stood up. The mud on her clothes dried instantly and flaked away as heat radiated from her body. You wanted a flawless Luna, she said, looking at the closed doors of the mansion. I will show you something greater than a Luna. A low growl rumbled in her chest, not the growl of a wolf, but something ancient. Inside the party, Killian was accepting a glass of wine from Seraphina when he suddenly dropped it. He grabbed the edge of the table, his face paling. Killian, Seraphina asked. What is it? My wolf, Killian gasped, clutching his chest. He's bowing. Bowing to whom? Killian looked toward the back doors, fear finally creeping into his eyes. To her. The outer barracks were little more than a collection of rotting wood and rusted tin sheets located on the very edge of the pack lands, bordering the dense, forbidden forest. It was where the pack kept the gardening tools, the broken furniture, and now the rejected mate of the future alpha. Emma huddled in the corner of the drafty shed, wrapping a moth-eaten blanket around her shivering shoulders. The physical cold was biting, but the internal cold was worse. The hollow space in her chest where the mate bond had been felt like a black hole, sucking in all her warmth and hope. She closed her eyes, trying to sleep, trying to forget the look of disgust on Killian's face. Power does not mate with weakness. The words replayed in her mind on an endless loop. Suddenly, a spasm of pain arched her back off the dirty mattress. It started at the base of her spine, a heat so intense it felt like molten lead was being poured into her marrow. Emma screamed, but the sound died in her throat, choked off by a wave of pure energy. Her skin began to glow. It wasn't the soft golden glow of a shifting wolf. It was violet, dark, electric, terrifying violet. The scar on her face, usually a dull pink, flared into a brilliant white line. The pain vanished, replaced by a rush of power so intoxicating It made her head spin. She looked at her hands. They were wreathed in flames. Panic surged through her. "Fire, I'm on fire!" She frantically tried to pat the flames out against the mattress, but the fabric didn't burn. The fire danced over the dusty floorboards, licking at the dry wood of the walls, yet nothing consumed. It was cold fire. Moon fire, memories she didn't know she had crashed into her consciousness. She saw her mother bleeding out in the snow 6 years ago, grabbing Emma's face with blood-stained hands. "Hide it, Emma," her mother's voice echoed in her mind, clearer than it had been in years. "I have placed a seal on you. The scar is the lock. Never let them see the fire. They will hunt you. They will kill you." Emma gasped, the realization hitting her. The rogue attack hadn't been random. They hadn't been looking for money or territory. They had been looking for her. Her parents hadn't died protecting a helpless child. They had died protecting a weapon. And Killian, with his cruel rejection, had shattered the emotional anchor that held the seal in place. The pain of a broken heart was the key that unlocked the god-tier power. A mile away in the Alpha's mansion, Killian Thorne woke up screaming. He fell out of his king-sized bed, tangling in the silk sheets, sweating profusely. His chest heaved as he clawed at his heart. "She burns," his wolf roared in his head, a sound of terrified awe. "The Queen burns, shut up," Killian gasped, stumbling to the window. He looked out toward the edge of the packlands. In the distance, a pillar of soft violet light was rising into the night sky, piercing the clouds. It was beautiful and terrifying. The other wolves in the pack house were waking up now, lights flickering on. Howls of confusion started to ripple through the territory. Killian gripped the windowsill until the wood splintered under his fingers. He felt a pull, a magnetic, irresistible force, dragging him toward that light. His wolf was fighting him for control, desperate to run to the source, to kneel, to beg forgiveness. "What is that?" Seraphina's voice came from the doorway. She was wrapped in a silk robe, looking annoyed rather than afraid. "Is there a fire in the barracks?" Probably that clumsy Omega knocking over a lantern. Killian turned to look at her. For the first time he noticed how sharp her features were, how shallow her scent was compared to the ozone and rain he had smelled earlier. "That's not a fire," Killian whispered, the fear in his gut turning into a cold dread. "That's raw magic." He grabbed his shirt and bolted for the door. "Killian, where are you going?" Seraphina shrieked. "To see what I've done," he growled. By the time Killian and the pack warriors arrived at the outer barracks, the violet pillar had vanished. The shed was dark. Killian kicked the door open, his claws extended. Emma. The room was empty. The mattress was cold, but on the floor, scorched into the wood in a perfect circle where she had been sitting, was a mark. It looked like a crescent moon intersected by a lightning bolt. Alpha Magnus pushed past his son, staring at the mark. The old Alpha's face went white. He fell to his knees, tracing the soot with a trembling finger. Father Killian asked, his arrogance replaced by confusion. "What is it?" "Did she set a fire?" Magnus looked up, fear in his eyes. "You fool, you absolute fool. What, you rejected a moonfire carrier?" Magnus whispered, his voice shaking. "This mark, it hasn't been seen in 300 years. It belongs to the Shadow Celestial lineage. They are the only wolves capable of killing an alpha with a single thought." Killian stepped back, the blood draining from his face. "She's just a servant." "She's weak. She was suppressing it," Magnus roared, standing up and shoving Killian against the wall. "The scar was a seal. And you broke it. If the council finds out she is here, they will burn this entire pack to the ground to get to her." "Where is she?" Killian asked, looking out into the dark forest. "Gone," Magnus said grimly. "And God help us if she decides to come back." 3 days passed. The Silver Creek pack was in a state of high alert. Patrols were doubled, and no one was allowed to leave the territory boundaries. The official story given to the pack was that a rogue had infiltrated the perimeter and kidnapped the servant girl. Killian was forbidden from telling anyone the truth, especially Seraphina. Killian was unraveling. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's tear-streaked face. He felt the phantom pain of the bond he had severed. His wolf had gone silent, refusing to speak to him, punishing him with isolation. He sat in his office, staring at a map of the surrounding territories, trying to predict where a scared 18-year-old girl would run. The intercom on his desk buzzed. Alpha Killian. The gate guard's voice crackled, sounding terrified. There's someone here to see you." He drove right through the gate. We couldn't stop him. "What do you mean you couldn't stop him?" Killian barked, standing up. "Shoot the tires. We tried, sir. The bullets." They melted. Killian froze. A minute later, the heavy double doors of his office were blasted off their hinges. They flew across the room, smashing into the mahogany bookshelves. Killian shifted instantly, his claws extending a growl ripping from his throat. But he stopped before he could lunge. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he had walked out of a nightmare. He was tall, wearing a long trench coat made of black leather that seemed to absorb the light. He wore round, dark sunglasses, even though they were indoors. His hair was platinum blonde, buzzed short. But it was the smell that made Killian gag. The man smelled like ash and old blood. "Killian Thorne," the man said. His voice was smooth-cultured and terrifyingly calm. He stepped over the ruined doors, brushing dust off his lapel. "Who are you?" Killian snarled, though he fought the urge to step back. "I am Sebastian Vane," the stranger said, removing his sunglasses to reveal eyes that were entirely black. No whites, no irises, just voids. High Inquisitor for the Supernatural Council. Killian's heart hammered against his ribs. The Inquisitors were the boogeymen of the wolf world. They didn't deal with pack politics. They dealt with existential threats. They hunted abominations. To what do I owe the pleasure? Killian asked, trying to summon his alpha command tone. Sebastian smiled, revealing teeth that were slightly too sharp to be human. "Don't play coy, pup. Our sensors picked up a massive discharge of etheric energy in this sector 72 hours ago. A Class 5 manifestation." Sebastian walked around the room, running a gloved hand over Killian's desk. Class 5 is a planet-killer level event, Killian, usually reserved for the awakening of ancient demons, or the rebirth of the moonfire. He stopped and looked directly at Killian. "We know you're hiding her." "I'm hiding no one," Killian lied, his voice steady. "We had a generator malfunction in the outer sector. It exploded." Sebastian laughed softly. "A generator? Do you think I'm stupid?" Suddenly Sebastian moved. He was a blur of motion. Before Killian could blink, Sebastian had him pinned against the wall, a hand wrapped around Killian's throat. Killian gasped, clawing at the arm, but it was like striking iron. "I can smell her on you," Sebastian whispered, leaning in close. "Underneath your cheap cologne and the stench of your fear. You smell like ozone and rain. You were close to her when she turned." Sebastian tightened his grip. "Where is the girl?" The one with the scar, Killian's vision started to spot. He couldn't breathe, but a strange, twisted protectiveness flared in his chest. If he told Sebastian where Emma might be, this man would kill her. Killian had rejected her, yes. He had wanted her gone, but he didn't want her dead. "She," Killian choked out. "Rogues took her." Sebastian studied his face for a long moment, searching for the lie. Then abruptly he dropped Killian. Killian slumped to the floor, coughing, rubbing his bruised neck. "Rogues, you say?" Sebastian mused, adjusting his gloves. "That's unfortunate. If rogues have a moonfire host, they could level a city within a week." Sebastian turned to the shattered doorway. "I will be setting up a command post here, Alpha Thorn. My team arrives in an hour. We will scour every inch of this forest. If she is out there, we will find her." He paused and looked back over his shoulder. "And when we find her, we will neutralize the threat. Permanently." Killian watched him leave. As the Inquisitor walked down the hall, Killian realized he had made a catastrophic mistake. He had thought Emma was a burden to his pack's reputation. Now he realized she was the most important being on the planet, and he had just sent her straight into the wild alone. Meanwhile, 10 miles deep into the Blackwood Forest, Emma stumbled. She was exhausted, hungry, and her clothes were torn. She had been running for 3 days, fueled only by adrenaline and the strange humming energy in her veins. She collapsed next to a stream, scooping up icy water to drink. As she looked at her reflection in the moonlight, she gasped. The scar was gone. The jagged line that had defined her face for 6 years had vanished without a trace. Her skin was smooth, flawless, and glowing with a faint pearlescent sheen. She looked different, older, fiercer. Her eyes were no longer hazel, but a swirling mix of silver and violet. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Emma spun around, crouching defensively. 5 men emerged from the shadows of the trees. They were dirty, unshaven, and smelled of stale beer and violence. Rogues. Wolves who had been kicked out of packs for crimes too heinous to forgive. The leader, a massive brute with a missing ear, stepped forward, licking his lips. A pretty little thing, all alone in the dark. You don't smell like a pack wolf. You smell expensive. Emma backed up until her heels hit the water. "Stay back." The rogues laughed, or what the leader sneered. "You'll scream no one can hear you out here, darling." He lunged. Emma didn't think. She reacted. She threw her hand out, palm open. "Kneel." The word didn't just come from her throat. It came from the earth, the sky, and the air around them. A blast of violet fire erupted from her hand, slamming into the rogue leader. He didn't burn. He was blasted backward, as if hit by a freight train, smashing into an oak tree with a bone-shattering crunch. The other 4 rogues froze. Emma stood up the violet flames, now wreathing both her arms, her eyes glowing like twin stars. She felt no fear, only power. I said Emma spoke her voice, echoing with the harmonics of the moonfire kneel. One by one, the terrified rogues dropped to their knees, whining, pressing their foreheads into the dirt. They recognized the energy. It wasn't the power of an alpha. It was the power of a predator they had never seen before. Emma looked at her hands, the fire dancing between her fingers. She wasn't the scarred Omega anymore. She was something else, entirely. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't the prey. She was the hunter. The rogues didn't attack her again. After witnessing the display of moonfire, they treated Emma with a terrified reverence, flanking her like an honor guard, as they led her deeper into the Blackwood Forest. They moved away from the Silver Creek borders, crossing into the unclaimed territory known as the Deadlands. Emma expected the rogues to live in caves or dirt hovels, but after miles of trekking through dense undergrowth, the trees opened up to reveal a fortress. It was an abandoned industrial complex, an old steel mill repurposed with reinforced gates, floodlights, and watchtowers. "Welcome to Ironhold." The rogue who had tried to attack her mumbled, keeping his head low. "The king will want to see you." "King?" Emma asked, raising an eyebrow. Her new confidence felt like a second skin, smooth and unyielding. I didn't know rogues had kings. We didn't, the rogue said, until Damon came. They passed through the gates. The courtyard was filled with hundreds of wolves, men, women, even children. They weren't the savage monsters the pack stories always described. They were families looking tired and hungry, but organized. They watched Emma pass with wary eyes. She was led into the main foundry, a massive cavernous space where the heat of the old furnaces still seemed to linger. Sitting on a high platform, lounging on a chair, welded together from scrap metal and leather, was a man. Damon Sterling. He was nothing like Kylian. Where Kylian was polished, aristocratically handsome and tailored, Damon was raw, brutal, and rugged. He had shaggy brown hair, a thick beard, and tattoos of runic binding chains wrapping up his muscular arms. He wore combat boots and a tactical vest. He looked like a soldier who had survived a war everyone else had lost. He didn't stand when Emma entered. He just watched her, his amber eyes calculating. So, Damon's voice was a deep baritone that echoed off the steel walls. This is the weapon my scouts told me about, the girl who made a beta kneel with a single word. Emma stepped forward, refusing to be intimidated. The violet energy hummed beneath her skin, a constant reminder of her lethal potential. I am not a weapon. My name is Emma. Damon chuckled, standing up slowly. He was massive, easily 6'5", towering over even the largest guards. He walked down the metal steps, the heavy thud of his boots, the only sound in the room. Emma! He tested the name. He stopped 2 feet from her, invading her personal space. He sniffed the air, but unlike Kylian, he didn't recoil. He smiled. You smell like a storm that's about to break the world in half. And you don't smell like any pack I know. I have no pack, Emma said coldly. Not anymore. Silver Creek, Damon deduced, circling her. I heard the rumors. Alpha Magnus's son, the Golden Boy, rejected his mate 3 nights ago. The resulting energy surge blew out the power grid in 3 towns. He stopped in front of her again. That was you. Emma didn't answer. The mention of Kylian made her heart ache, but the anger quickly cauterized the wound. Why are you here, Emma? Damon asked, his tone turning serious. I had nowhere else to go. Bullshit! Damon snapped. With that power, you could go anywhere. You could walk into the Royal Council and demand a seat, but you're running. Why? Because there is a man named Sebastian Vane hunting me, Emma admitted. The reaction was instant. The guards around the room stiffened. Damon's playful demeanor vanished. His eyes darkened. Vane. Damon spat the name like a curse. The Council's lapdog. If the Inquisitor is after you, it means you're a Class 5 threat, a Moonfire host. He looked at her with new eyes, not just interest, but strategic hunger. He will kill you, Emma, Damon said bluntly. The Council doesn't allow power like yours to exist outside their control. They will dissect you to see how you tick. I can fight him, Emma said, her fists clenching violet sparks, dancing between her knuckles. No, you can't, Damon said, grabbing her wrist before she could pull away. His grip was firm but not painful. Vane has killed gods. You're just a girl who learned to strike a match 3 days ago. You have raw power, yes, but you have no discipline, no control. You'll burn yourself out before you land a scratch on him. Emma yanked her hand back. And I suppose you can help me. I can teach you, Damon said. I was a general in the Northern Legion before the Council branded me a traitor. I know how Vane fights. I know how to kill Inquisitors. And what do you want in return? Emma asked skeptically. Charity isn't the way of rogues. Damon grinned, a dangerous, wolfish expression. I want Silver Creek. I want to burn Magnus's legacy to the ground. and with you by my side, we can take it all." He held out his hand. "Join me, Emma. Be the queen of the outcasts. Let's show Killian Thorne exactly what kind of weakness he threw away." Emma looked at his hand. It was a deal with the devil, leading an army of rogues against her old home. It was treason. It was madness. But then she remembered the servants' quarters. She remembered Seraphina's laughter. She remembered Killian turning his back on her while she lay in the broken glass. Emma took Damon's hand. "Teach me." 2 weeks later, the training had transformed Emma. Damon was a relentless teacher. He pushed her until she collapsed, then forced her back up. He taught her to channel the moonfire, not just as an explosion, but as a precision tool. She learned to create shields to condense the fire into a whip to enhance her speed. But more importantly, he taught her to accept the beast inside her. They were sparring in the courtyard of Ironhold Emma, dodging Damon's heavy strikes with supernatural grace. She ducked a swing of his fist, spun, and swept his legs with a kick, reinforced by a burst of violet energy. Damon hit the mat with a grunt, laughing. "Good! You're getting faster." Before Emma could reply, a siren wailed across the compound. "Perimeter breach!" A lookout screamed from the watchtower. "Sector 4! They're coming through the fence!" Damon was on his feet instantly. "Who is it?" "Another rogue clan." "No." The lookout yelled terror in his voice. "It's the Inquisition and Silver Creek Wolves." Emma's blood went cold. "He found me." "Battle stations!" Damon roared, his voice commanding the chaos instantly. "Get the civilians to the bunker's Alpha Squad. With me. Emma, stay back." "No," Emma said, her eyes glowing. "They're here for me. I'm not hiding in a hole." Damon looked at her for a second, seeing the resolve in her face. He nodded. "Then stay close. And don't hold back." They raced to the breached gate. The heavy steel doors had been melted off their hinges. Stepping through the smoke were 50 heavily armed tactical soldiers wearing the insignia of the Council Sebastian Vane's private army, and beside them, looking uncomfortable and grim, were the warriors of Silver Creek. At the front of the pack stood Alpha Magnus and Killian. Killian looked terrible. He had lost weight. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. He scanned the rogue defenders frantically until his gaze landed on Emma. He stopped dead. He barely recognized her. The terrified servant girl in the grey rags was gone. In her place stood a warrior. Emma wore black tactical gear similar to Damon's, her hair tied back in a high braid. But it was her face that stunned him. The scar was gone. Her skin was flawless, glowing with health and power. She was breathtaking. "Emma!" Killian whispered, taking an involuntary step forward. "Hold your position, Alpha Thorne," a smooth voice commanded. Sebastian Vane stepped out from behind the soldiers. He wore a pristine white suit today, a stark contrast to the grime of the industrial yard. He adjusted his sunglasses, smiling at Emma. "There she is," Sebastian purred. "The runaway nuke." "Get off my land, Vane," Damon growled, stepping in front of Emma. "Ah, Captain Sterling." Sebastian nodded. "I should have known you'd be harboring the fugitive. 2 traitors for the price of 1. "Emma," Killian called out, ignoring Sebastian. He walked forward, his hands raised. "Emma, please, come back to us. This man, Sebastian, he plans to imprison you. If you come back to Silver Creek, I can protect you. I swear it." Emma looked at Killian. For the first time in her life, she looked down on him. Not physically, but spiritually. "Protect me." Emma laughed, a harsh sound. "You couldn't even protect me from your own ego, Killian. You threw me into the mud because of a scar. And now that I'm beautiful, now that I'm powerful, suddenly you want me back. It's not like that," Killian pleaded. "My wolf. He's dying without you. The bond." "The bond is dead," Emma said icily. "You killed it." "Enough of this soap opera." Sebastian sighed. He snapped his fingers. "Kill them all. Secure the girl." The council soldiers opened fire, but they weren't shooting bullets. They were shooting concentrated tranquilizer darts filled with wolfsbane and liquid silver. "Shields!" Damon roared. Emma didn't wait for the order. She thrust both hands forward. A massive wall of violet flame erupted from the ground, disintegrating the darts in mid-air. The heat was so intense that the Silver Creek wolves had to scramble back, shielding their faces. "Attack!" Damon yelled. The rogues charged. It was chaos. Wolves clashed with soldiers. Damon transformed into a massive, scarred timber wolf, tearing into the council lines. Killian stood frozen in the middle of the battlefield, watching Emma. She was a storm of destruction. She moved like water-blasting soldiers back with waves of force, deflecting attacks with casual flicks of her wrist. She was magnificent, and she was utterly terrifying. Sebastian Vane watched her too, not with fear, but with delight. He pulled a strange metallic rod from his jacket. It hummed with a high-pitched frequency. "Let's see how you handle this," Sebastian whispered. He pointed the rod at Emma and pressed a button. A beam of distorted sound waves hit her. It wasn't physical. It was sonic. It targeted the frequency of the moonfire itself. Emma screamed, clutching her head. The violet fire flickered and died. She fell to her knees, bleeding from her nose. "Emma!" Damon shouted, trying to reach her, but he was surrounded by 6 soldiers with electric pikes. Sebastian walked calmly toward Emma, the rod still humming. "Did you think you were the first moonfire host I've hunted, my dear? I know your frequency. I can turn your own power into a migraine that will liquefy your brain." He stood over her, raising a silver-plated pistol. "You're too dangerous to live. A pity." Emma looked up, vision blurring. She couldn't summon the fire. The sound was scrambling her mind. She was going to die. Suddenly, a blur of black fur slammed into Sebastian. It was Killian. He had shifted in mid-air, his massive black wolf, tackling the Inquisitor. Sebastian lost his grip on the sonic rod, and it skittered across the pavement. Killian stood over Sebastian, snarling his jaws, snapping inches from the Inquisitor's throat. He had broken the Council's highest law, attacking an Inquisitor. He had just committed treason to save the girl he rejected. The sound stopped. Emma gasped, the air rushing back into her lungs. The fire flared back to life, hotter and angrier than before. She stood up. Her eyes were no longer just violet. They were entirely white. "Killian, move!" she commanded. Killian's wolf looked at her, then scrambled away, sensing what was coming. Emma looked at Sebastian, who was trying to stand up, his white suit muddy. "You want to see a Class 5 event," Emma whispered. She raised her hands to the sky. The clouds above Ironhold swirled and broke open. A beam of pure moonlight slammed down into her, and then exploded outward in a shockwave. It didn't hit Killian. It didn't hit Damon or the rogues. It only hit the council soldiers. In a flash of blinding light, the weapons in their hands turned to ash. The tires of their vehicles melted. The soldiers were thrown back, 50 feet, unconscious, but alive. Sebastian was the only one left, standing shielded by some personal barrier, but even he was pushed back, his feet carving grooves into the concrete. Silence fell over the battlefield. Emma stood in the center of a crater of scorched concrete, wreathed in violet flames that reached 20 feet high. She looked like a goddess of vengeance. She looked at Killian, then at Damon. "I am done running," she declared, her voice echoing like thunder. and I am done following orders." The dust settled over the courtyard of Ironhold, but the air remained heavy with the scent of ozone and burnt metal. Sebastian Vane stood up, brushing ash from his ruined white suit. He looked at the destruction around him, his elite soldiers unconscious, his technology fried, and a vein throbbed dangerously in his temple. But Sebastian was a creature of politics as much as violence. He knew when he was outgunned. He also knew the laws that bound their society were older than the concrete beneath his feet. "You have made a grave error today, Emma Vance," Sebastian said, his voice calm but laced with venom. "And you, Killian Thorne, striking a High Inquisitor is an act of war against the Council. The punishment is death." "He saved my life," Emma said, stepping forward. Her skin still hummed with the violet afterglow of the moon fire. "Which is more than your laws ever did for me." Sebastian sneered. "Sentiments are irrelevant. The law is absolute." Alpha Magnus. Magnus, who had been cowering behind a rusted truck, stepped forward, looking old and defeated. "Yes, Inquisitor. Arrest your son," Sebastian commanded. "If you do not, I will declare the Silver Creek Pack a rogue entity. I will sanction an airstrike on your territory within the hour. Your women, your pups, your elders, all of them will burn." Killian stood frozen. He looked at his father, then at Emma. He didn't fight when two of his own pack warriors approached him, their heads bowed in shame, carrying silver cuffs. "Killian," Emma started taking a step. "Don't," Killian said softly, his eyes locking with hers. "He's right. If I fight, the pack dies. I did what I had to do." The warriors shackled Killian. The silver burned his skin, sizzling against his wrists, but he didn't flinch. He just kept watching Emma, memorizing her face, as if it were the last time he would see the sun. "I am invoking the tribunal," Sebastian announced, turning his black eyes to Emma. "You want to prove you aren't a monster, then you will come to the Citadel. You will stand trial. If the Council deems you controllable, you lives. If not, well, we will see." "And Killian?" Emma asked. "He will be executed at dawn for treason," Sebastian said simply. "Unless, of course, the Moonfire host wishes to bargain." Sebastian turned and walked to his surviving transport vehicle. "You have 24 hours, Miss Vance. The Citadel awaits." As the convoy retreated, dragging a shackled Killian with them, a heavy silence fell over Ironhold. Damon walked up to Emma, wiping blood from his lip. "You can't go there, Emma. The Citadel is a trap. It's built on ancient dampening runes. Your powers will be halved there. They'll kill you the moment you step inside." Emma watched the dust cloud where Killian had disappeared. She remembered the look in his eyes, not arrogance, not pity, but a desperate, tragic acceptance. He had sacrificed everything to save her from the sonic weapon. He had thrown away his title, his future, and his life for the mate he had rejected. "He saved me, Damon," Emma said quietly. "He rejected you," Damon reminded her sharply. "He broke you." "I know." Emma turned to look at the rogue king. "And I will never forget that. But I will not let him die for me. I don't owe him my heart, Damon. But I owe him a life." She tightened her ponytail, her expression hardening into steel. "Gather the men. We aren't going to the Citadel to surrender. We're going to take over." The Citadel of the Council was a fortress of black glass and stone built into the side of a mountain 300 miles north. It was the seat of all werewolf governance, a place where alphas feared to tread. The tribunal hall was a massive circular chamber. In the center was a raised stone platform. Surrounding it were tiered seats filled with the most powerful alphas from around the continent, all murmuring, all watching. At the head of the room sat the council of 7 ancient wolves in red robes, and standing before them, acting as prosecutor, was Sebastian Vane. Killian knelt in the center of the room, chained to the floor. He looked beaten. His shirt was torn, revealing bruises where the guards had worked him over, but his head was high. The evidence is irrefutable. Sebastian addressed the council, his voice amplified by the acoustics of the hall. Killian Thorne attacked a council official to protect a Class 5 threat. He prioritized a rogue romance over the safety of our species. The sentence is death. The head counselor, a withered woman named Elder Mara, nodded slowly. "Have you any last words, Killian Thorne?" Killian looked at Sebastian. "She isn't a threat. She is the future, and you are afraid of her." "Execute him!" Sebastian snapped, signaling the executioner, a massive wolf holding a silver axe. The executioner raised the axe. The crowd held its breath. Boom! The massive double doors of the tribunal hall didn't open, they exploded. Shards of ancient timber and stone rained down on the alphas in the back rows. Through the smoke walked Emma Vance. She wasn't wearing tactical gear this time. She wore a dress of woven black silk that seemed to ripple like smoke, a gift from the women of Ironhold. But it was the crown of violet fire hovering inches above her head that made the entire room gasp. Behind her walked Damon and 50 of his toughest rogues' weapons, drawn flanked by the remaining Silver Creek warriors who had defected from Magnus to follow the Moonfire Queen. "I object," Emma said, her voice cutting through the room. Sebastian turned his face, twisting in rage. "You dare bring armed rogues into the citadel?" "I dare a lot of things," Emma said, walking down the center aisle. The alphas on either side shrank back, terrified of the heat radiating from her. She stopped at the edge of the pit, looking down at Killian. He looked up at her, stunned awe on his face. "I demand the right of the moon," Emma declared, looking directly at Elder Mara. The room erupted in chaos. The right of the moon was a legend, a pre-council law that allowed a challenger to fight for the leadership of the species. It hadn't been invoked in 1,000 years, because it required a wolf to be chosen by the goddess. "Order." Elder Mara slammed her staff down. "The right is a myth. You are a mutant girl, not a messiah." "Am I?" Emma challenged. She raised her hand. The torches lining the walls of the massive hall didn't just flicker, they turned violet. The moonlight filtering through the glass dome above focused into a single beam, illuminating her. "The goddess seems to disagree," Emma said coldly. "I challenge the authority of this council. I challenge Sebastian Vane. If I win, Killian goes free, and the Inquisition is disbanded. If I lose, you can have my blood." Sebastian laughed, a low, dark sound. He took off his jacket, rolling up his sleeves to reveal arms covered in black, shifting tattoos that looked like moving oil. "You foolish girl," Sebastian whispered. "I was hoping you would say that." The tribunal hall was cleared. The spectators pushed back against the walls behind force fields. The center of the room was now an arena. Emma stood on one side, Damon standing guard at the perimeter. Sebastian stood on the other. "You think Moonfire is the only ancient power in the world?" Sebastian mocked. He stretched his neck and his bones cracked loudly. "Where do you think the council gets its authority?" "We didn't just find it. We took it. From the shadows." Sebastian didn't shift into a wolf. Instead, the black tattoos on his arms peeled off his skin, expanding into the air, forming massive shadowy tendrils. He was a void walker, a corrupted lineage that fed on light. "Fight!" Elder Mara commanded. Sebastian struck first. The shadow tendrils lashed out faster than the eye could see. Emma dodged, rolling across the stone floor, but one tendril clipped her shoulder, slicing through the silk and drawing blood. The wound didn't bleed red. It bled light, I can taste your power. Sebastian groaned, his eyes rolling back. It's delicious. He launched a barrage of darkness. Emma put up a shield of violet fire, but the shadows ate through it, cracking her defenses. She was pushed back her feet, sliding toward the edge of the platform where Killian was still chained. "Emma!" Killian shouted, pulling at his chains. "He absorbs energy. Don't use the fire directly. He'll eat it." Emma realized he was right. Every blast she threw, Sebastian just absorbed, growing larger and more monstrous. He was now a towering avatar of smoke and teeth looming over her. "Give up!" Sebastian's voice boomed from everywhere at once. "You are a battery, nothing more. I will drain you dry." Emma fell to one knee, exhausted. The moonfire was limitless, but her body was human. She was tiring. She looked at Damon, who was shouting instructions she couldn't hear over the roar of the void. She looked at Killian, who was struggling so hard to get to her that his wrists were breaking against the silver. Power does not mate with weakness. Killian's words from the night of the rejection floated back to her, but they carried a different meaning now. She wasn't weak, and neither was he. Weakness was fear. Weakness was hiding behind walls and laws like the council did. Emma closed her eyes. She stopped fighting the void. She stopped trying to burn it away. Moonlight doesn't fight the dark, she realized. It illuminates it. "Killian!" Emma screamed. "Close your eyes!" She dropped her shields. Sebastian roared in triumph, his shadow tendrils rushing in to consume her. But Emma didn't push the fire out. She pulled the moonlight in. She became a conduit, a living prism for the moon above. "No!" Sebastian shrieked as he realized what she was doing. "Burn!" Emma whispered. She unleashed a flash of pure white luminescence. It wasn't fire. It was blinding, holy brilliance. It filled the hall, blinding the spectators, searing the retinas of the council elders. The void couldn't absorb it. It was too pure, too fast. Sebastian screamed as the shadows evaporated. The darkness was scoured from his skin. The tattoos burned away, leaving raw flesh. The monster dissolved, leaving only a man, a small, terrified man, standing in the center of the light. Emma walked through the light untouched. She grabbed Sebastian by the throat and lifted him into the air. "I yield," Sebastian gargled. "I yield." Emma looked at the council. "Do you accept the result?" Elder Mara, shielding her eyes, nodded frantically. "The rite is concluded. The challenger wins." Emma dropped Sebastian. He scrambled back, defeated, stripped of his power. She turned to Killian. With a wave of her hand, the violet fire melted his chains. Killian stood up, rubbing his wrists. He looked at her, and then slowly, deliberately, he went to his knees. Not in defeat. "In worship, my queen," Killian whispered. Around the room a hush fell. Then Damon knelt. The rogues knelt. The Silver Creek warriors knelt. Finally, even the council elders, trembling in their seats, bowed their heads. The scarred Omega had fallen. The Moonfire Queen had risen. The hierarchy of the werewolf world didn't change overnight, but the balance of power shifted permanently. The council was restructured with Damon Sterling, appointed as the new head of security, replacing the corrupt Inquisition. Silver Creek was no longer just a pack. It was the capital of a new alliance between pack wolves and rogues. 3 months later, Emma stood on the balcony of the Silver Creek pack house, the same house she had once scrubbed floors in. Killian walked out behind her. He stopped a respectable distance away. He hadn't tried to claim her. He hadn't tried to force the bond. He was courting her slowly, respectfully, trying to earn back the trust he had shattered. "The delegates are arriving," Killian said softly. "Are you ready?" Emma turned. Her face was flawless, but her eyes held the wisdom of the scar she once bore. She looked at Killian, the man who had broken her heart so she could find her soul. "I'm ready," she said. Killian extended his hand. "May I walk with you?" "Alpha Vance." Emma smiled, a genuine warm smile. She took his hand. The sparks were still there, electric and undeniable. "You may, Killian." They walked back inside together, not as master and servant, but as equals. The Alpha and the Queen. And that is the legend of Emma Vance. She taught the world that the scars we bear aren't signs of weakness. They're just the cracks where the light shines through. If Emma's journey set your soul on fire, make sure to hit that like button and smash subscribe. We have dozens of more stories about rejected mates, hidden powers, and sweet revenge coming your way every single week. What do you think, should Emma have forgiven Killian, or should she have chosen Damon? Let me know your choice in the comments below. Until next time, keep howling.